We're live. Here we are. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. Aaron, brother, introduce our wonderful guests today.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Crystal Hansen and Mark Hansen, thank you guys for being here. I've been reading your book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny, which I thank you so much for recommending me to read. I love it. I have a million notes here. I never take notes for these things, but I took notes that we're not even going to get to, I'm sure. But congratulations, you guys. You said you just hit #1 on Amazon bestseller list.
Yep, we hit the Amazon bestseller list last week. So that was really fun. It was a nice problem to have. We actually ran out of books, which was my publisher was scrambling to reprint books, and right at the same time we had another order for a conference for 400 books. So they just got hit all at once. And we literally ran out of books. So so he was scrambling to reprint. And then the funny thing is Amazon is so backlogged, I guess from just the volume of orders they've had since COVID or whatever, but they have like a stocking backlog. So once we got the books there, then we had like a whole other week of like having to wait till the book was, people were posting copies of the book for like $39 or 40 bucks because they were,
you created a world where people can also share in the piece of the pie.
The abundance, exactly.
As long as you get yours, and if anybody else wants to, that's great. Well, congratulations. I'm happy for you guys. I'm also happy for the world. Just knowing that, I didn't realize that, and I think the fact that you're saying that you guys are selling out it inspires me to know that people are out there asking questions. Thank God, because.
And you're also reading more than ever. Like yesterday, we were on the biggest show for Amazon called Amazon Bestseller with Mark Devereaux, who's a guy I've been on with before. And I love Mark. We love Mark. Mm-hmm. And Mark starts out, I get goosebumps, forgive me for a little brag, but he says, "You are the Roger Bannister of books." Now, he didn't know if I knew who Roger was. Roger, as you remember, ran the 4-minute mile. And then the next week, 119 people ran the 4-minute mile. I get goosebumps telling you that now.
I have them right now, too. I was just talking about Roger Bannister with someone else.
And I don't know why that's doing it, but I hope it's doing it for the audience. Forgive the brag, but you said, so what does that mean to you? And I said, look, what it means to me is that I'm setting some new records because I believe everyone's here to be a record breaker, a history maker, a contributor. If you believe in Genesis 1:26, you're in the image and likeness of God. You're here for 3 things: create, contribute, and be charitable. Look, if I broke the record with 500 million books because of Chicken Soup for the Soul, 1 Minute Millionaire Now Asked, somebody else is going to break it or try to catch up to me and break it. And that's what he says, well, where else does that happen? So I said, well, easy. Look, no one did $1 trillion company until Apple. Now we got $5 trillion companies. The minute none of this stuff's physiological or mental. I hope I'm not going too deep on this. It's actually all belief system. Yes. And you and I are here to expand belief systems.
Yes. And you reminded me of one of the lines in the book, which is, we are created to expand and grow. So we're definitely in alignment with that. And that's what we're doing. Otherwise, what else are we doing? We're sitting still and we're, I don't know, maybe we're going backwards, some of us, but we want to expand and grow. Yeah. And how do you do that other than pushing the boundaries, right? And then when you do something like this, you inspire other people to go ahead and push those limits as well. So I applaud you for that. It's so much needed right now, and thank you.
The reason we wrote Ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny, and we believe our destiny is to help everyone get to their destiny. But as you know, we've traveled to 80 countries, talked to some 7 million people, met wonderful people in both kinds of categories. They're educated, they're sociable, they've got a good attitude, they're professional. But the difference between those who succeed a little and those who succeed vastly is one thing and one thing only. They know how to effectively use asking, the art, the science, and the technology of it. Mm-hmm. And what we've done in our book, Ask, is put that all together and say, hey, look, here it is, because you don't get what you deserve, you get what you learn how to ask for effectively.
It takes courage to ask. And that's also, I think, what's rising right now. Or it's it. And you reminded me of when I was talking to Aaron about this. I've said this for a long time. No NBA basketball player, I guarantee if we surveyed every single NBA basketball player, they didn't learn to shoot at a 6-foot hoop and then a 7-foot hoop and then an 8-foot hoop. And then they learned to shoot at a 10-foot hoop and they grew in to the ability. And I think this book and everything that you guys have brought to this world and consciousness of humanity is say, here's the 10-foot hoop. Now you grow into that. We don't have to drink the milk. We can have the meat. We can have the milk and the meat, whatever, that whole analogy. Yeah. So it's beautiful.
Right. I love that. And, we start with the book talking about, how we all came into this world as children. And it's so interesting because we all started off being amazing askers. We were completely uncorrupted in our ability to ask. We weren't afraid to we were wildly curious, first of all, about everything. And we were constantly asking who, what, when, where, why, how, right? And we also weren't afraid to ask for more, and pretty much ask for everything we wanted, right? And then depending on how we were parented or what happened in our school years or, our jobs, basic life rejection, you're told to, okay, I've heard enough, quit asking any more questions, sit still or just do what you're told, take orders. We're not interested in your opinion or your feedback at jobs. And just life starts to reject you and shut you down. And all of a sudden you find yourself, we all find ourselves there at some point as an adult, feeling terrified to ask for anything, ask anyone for anything. And also, sadly, being very ashamed that we don't already have all the answers. And that's a tragedy because this life is about seeking, learning, and growing. And that's how we evolve, by asking, seeking, wondering. And so to pretend that we are supposed to somehow have all the answers, it is a tragedy. But so many of us as adults do that. We get into that trap where we're just so terrified not to already know, so terrified to be able to reach out and ask for something that we don't have or that we don't know.
Right. Well, when people think about asking, if they're listening right now, they're thinking that just means going and asking someone who's in front, like ask the teacher if you can go to the bathroom. It doesn't necessarily only mean that. There are many ways to ask. There are many who's to ask. And if you're afraid for now to go ask an authority figure a question out of fear of rejection or whatever, there are other ways to look. You can ask within. You can ask a higher power, right? And I know you guys talk a little bit about that. Do you want to elaborate?
We talk about 3 channels of asking, and you got it exactly right. And first of all, is you got to ask yourself. But we're talking about the deeper, innermost, highermost self, because we're talking about your destiny. And we believe, and I hope you believe, everyone's got a destiny, and it's great. Now, I assume that was coded as DNA and RNA at birth. But, we wrote the book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Destiny, so you could go deep and know the right questions to ask. Number 2, you got to ask others. And number 3, you got to ask God, which most people say, well, I don't need to ask God. God already knows. No, God knows everything. But you and I need to appeal to that.
But ask and you shall receive. So also be mindful of what you ask, because you may just get the answer.
Boy, that's right. And so, that brings me to another point, which is you can ask the wrong question. And so often, as a transformational life coach, what I've learned through the years is, and studied, studies show basically that so much of what we think about is negative. Okay. We're basically regurgitating negative thoughts all day long, negative opinions of ourselves, projecting that negativity forward every day. Like 75% of our thoughts is estimated are negative. And so the only way to break out of that is to go inside and start asking a different question, right? And the book is full of questions, those self-intervention questions and holding up the mirror questions, all those kinds of things. But all of us need to take that personal asking journey. And when you talk about the ask yourself part, that's that reflective journey. That's where it all starts. It's striking to me how few people spend that time with themselves, looking into their life and wondering and questioning what's going on and where they need to go with it. And we say there are like 3 critical phases of asking yourself. And those are, basically, where am I now? So few people just stop and do that analysis, take inventory of their life. Like, where am I now? And all the sub questions that come up under that, like, what's working? What's not working? Am I happy? Do I really need to stay in this place of misery, or is there something different for me? Start questioning it. And then where am I now is the first critical phase. where do I want to be, right? How many of us really entertain that idea and do it from the nth degree of our greatest life ever, whether it's your greatest life in your career, your greatest life in your relationships. And I know you did that, Aaron, when you sort of started pulling away from Hollywood, because like, where do I want to be in my perfect ideal world? And we really do need to use our imaginations, right? God gave us these incredible imaginations. We're the only animal that has imagination.
Yeah.
That's like, talk about being created in the creator's image.
Right.
That's what imagination does for us. We can imagine absolutely anything out of nothing. So you might as well start with the nth degree of your most beautiful life in your career, your most beautiful life you can imagine in your relationship, and then ask the questions backwards. In this most beautiful life, who am I talking to every day? What am I doing? How am I impacting the world? What services am I selling? What products am I sharing? How are people responding to me? In that way, you literally create your perfect life backwards, right?
Right.
And then I would say the final phase of that, the critical phase, where am I now, where do I want to be? And what specific action steps do I need to take to get there? Because as you start to get these breakthroughs, and you will, when you start asking, you need to put it in action. Like, we're living this physical reality. We need to pick up the phone, call that person, write down those ideas and thoughts. Take those steps that will get you to the next place and the next place and the next place.
For your guys' journey, both of you just putting out the amount of content that you have and sharing this beautiful truth that you guys have been on as individuals and coming together and doing the work that you've done. What was it for you looking back that I have something I want to say, or I have something that I feel called to step out and write?
Lucas, thanks. I think both of us got to answer that question, but I'll start first. It's 1974, the oil embargo hits. I've been in graduate school with Buckminster Fuller, the smartest guy, Einstein's best student, invented geodesic domes, all kinds of stuff, wrote 40 books. And I traveled with Dr. Fuller for 7 years. So I was drinking of the Holy Grail, so to speak. And I thought I was trying to be Bucky, which is dysfunctional behavior at the highest amount. And I built the botanical gardens, aviaries, houses out of plastic in New York. Geodesic domes, they're called, spherical buildings made out of triangles. 1974, the oil embargo hits, and I'm building out of PVC, polyvinyl chloride plastic. Long time, best worst experience. I crash and burn. And what Crystal said a second ago so wisely is, you ask the wrong question, you go the wrong way. I said, what if I go bankrupt and I'm not the money? Check a book out of the library, how to go bankrupt by yourself. Now, the people that are hanging on by their fingernails are listening now. Remember, I've got 44 years past that. I'm 73 years young now. Never call yourself old. It's wrong thinking.
That's right.
I'm looking back so I can laugh at my problem, but I wanted to kill myself. I was distressed, despondent, disconsolate. I thought I was a total loser because I'd been a winner, I thought, because I built all this cool stuff in New York. And then I'm doing what you asked, is I'm going deep and I'm saying, okay, God, what's your destiny for me? What's your destiny? And that's what we're teaching in the book. You got to say it like 400 times, because you got to get past conscious into deep subconscious to go up to superconscious to get what your answer is. And in the middle of the night, it comes up, you're supposed to talk to people that care about things that matter, that make a life-changing difference. Well, the light bulbs went off. The epiphany went off. I run down to my roommates. I'm living in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. I've been sleeping in a sleeping bag in front of another guy's room. And I said, hey, guys, you know anyone young that's out speaking that's not a Broadway star, not a celebrity, not a lawyer, not a doctor, not an actor, and somewhere close to my age so I can relate to him or her? I said, yeah, here's a little ticket. I mean, it was magic. It's mystical when you really get it. Why Crystal said imagination creates your reality and your manifestation and your materialization. It's true. And it seems, well, that's easy for Mark or easy for Crystal. No, it's true for peanut butter falcon riders. I mean, it just works for everybody. The point is, I go out and hear this guy, Chip Collins, who became my mentor and friend, for 3 hours, wow, this audience, like 500 people. And I go up to him at the end and I say, I got to ask you, teach me how to do what you're doing. He said, kid, look, chance you making this 1 in 1,000. You ain't going to make it. Don't do it. I said, I'll buy you lunch. Just tell me. And he told me what to do, how to do it. But he said, stay out of the real estate business. I own the 5 boroughs of New York here. You do life insurance. It's a bottomless pit, kid. I did 1,000 talks a year the first 3 years. And because I'm a good storyteller, people kept coming up and saying, you have it in a book. And the first book I did was stand up, speak out, and win.
Hmm.
And I did little audiences, like 10 people, 20 or 30, and 50 was the biggest ever. And I said, this isn't a New York Times bestseller. It's not a national bestseller, but it's my bestseller. And I want to sign it to you, your wife, your kids. And if you got a dog, I'll put your dog in it. You know? But I sold 20,000 copies and made $200,000, $10 a book.
Wow.
And I thought I'd come back. I was paying off the bankruptcy. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. And that's why asking is the most transformative thing any individual can do. But the line coming out of the Bible, asking you to receive, like Aaron said, seems superficial. Yeah, I know what that means. You don't know what it means. And what we're discovering is that people are having a transformative experience, because when they get the book, they go over every question with their spouse, their business partner, temple partner, whomever it is, and they're saying, holy cow, I didn't know who I really was. Because you got to know who you are so you know what you want to be, do, and have, all by asking.
That's beautiful.
That's powerful.
And you mentioned religion. Some people get triggered by that, but that phrase is also supported by science, right? Asking you shall receive, because there's a vibration to everything.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, if you want, I think, where religion ends, quantum physics picks up, or where physics ends, quantum physics picks up and blends with what we call religion. It's just, the universal principles that were put in place by the source. Okay. And how could there not be this source that is full of love and full of intelligence, because that's what we are. So where did that come from? Okay. Because we are a manifestation of that, universal power, universal source. And so why wouldn't you want to tap into it? Forget about what you call source, God. We know God is God, and it's just easy to call on God. But we also know that the way God works in your life, God's not this far away, guy with a beard in the sky. God can only work through you, inside of you, right? It's that life source then the life force that's inside of you. And when you understand that, the sky is the limit. And so that's why asking is so important, because it's really funny how our brains were wired. The minute you start asking yourself a question, a different part of your brain lights up. Your brain literally becomes a different resource, a better resource to you. And it engages the part of your brain that does critical thinking. So suddenly you're just seeing these solutions, these answers are coming to you. Plus, as you ask in a bigger, deeper conscious way, you're tapping into all the resources of the universe, right? All of God's resources. So you start asking questions, suddenly you get an illumination, that you ask another question and a solution comes to you that wasn't there before. You keep asking and suddenly the problem seems to have worked itself out. And you're like, wow, how come I didn't see that? But it is truly magical, and it works. And I'll tell you, what happens with human beings is we get into our problem, and we take all of our feedback, we take our cues from what's going on around us. We look outside at our outside world and go, look at this world full of problems. Look at my life full of problems. And we start to let that outside world feed us, feed who we become. And we think that, we're just trying to duck and dodge and keep our balls up in the air. Yeah. The reality, that's an illusion. The reality is your life experience is created from the inside out. And so that time you spend with yourself in contemplation, with your journal, asking the questions, writing down your answers, writing down your illuminations, you will find that you start to create a different life. This life that you see now is the evidence of what you've been thinking or what you've been asking for up to this point.
That's right.
When you start to ask a new question, you create a new life.
Yeah, I think one of the big things too is people ask these questions with a limited belief of expecting a practical answer. And there's no magic in that. They're like, well, in order for me to get that answer, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and all these things need to happen. You're limiting God at that point. And sorry, Lucas, I know you had something to say, but
no, I was just great point. In Hebrew, the word love is ahava, which means to give. And God is love. So God, this is where people get misconstrued with religion, is that God is love. infinite and unconditional, and will always give to us exactly what we're asking. And the deal with unconsciousness is we're always asking something and we're always getting what we're asking. And that's why I love your book, is it's to be conscious in what we are asking and to really be intentional, because we're getting, like you just said, Crystal, we get exactly what has been the product of then now. So if we want something different, then we have to change what we're asking now. It's that's the quantum.
So true.
So, two parts. Number one is that love has two parts. One is givingness, and God is the eternal givingness of the universe. Mm-hmm. But then the second part, where we screw up as human beings, should be really called human becomings, because we're in an embryonic, always evolving, evoluting stage, is that we get stuck in forgiveness. And the first person you got to forgive is yourself, and then forgive all the others, and forgive consciousness, subconscious, superconscious, God conscious. And most of us get stuck there. I mean, I can do a half-hour story on just that, which I did in Chicken Soup for the Christian Soul. So it is amazing how powerful this love giving is. And what just one more part to it, and that is, we're studying this higher metaphysics that you were saying, because the top of physics is metaphysics, which is what we've been doing this whole show. And when you get there, you find out that the reality that we're dealing with is less than 1 or maybe at the most 2% of the electromagnetic spectrum. That's why when you study the people that die and go to the other side, all of them say the colors are brighter, the sounds are more beautiful, there's more harmony, because we get sucked into believing that this little part of reality is reality. And that's why Crystal said it isn't out there, it's in here. It's inside out, not outside in.
Gives me chills. That gives me chills. It's like, it's ridiculous to say that the pitch that the dog hears isn't real. We know it's real because they hear it, just because we can't perceive it, just like all the other color spectrums. This is where life becomes fun. It becomes fun, and we're not victim to everything that's happening. We're creators of everything that we want to experience. And I come from a deeply entrenched, high-ranking religious home. And things we're talking about right now, when I was growing up, I would, New Age, this, blah, blah, blah. But I will tell you right now, being on the other side, leaving that world and being free to
take it all in
here with you right now in this moment. I mean, I could cry. I want everyone to come into this space and leave this confines of fear and judgment and control and hedging and all this, and just, I love the becoming, Mark. That's I'm a human becoming. That's beautiful.
It is so beautiful. And you know what? All the limitations we have been we put on ourselves. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you look at the gift the Master Jesus was, he came to teach us all these things, to forgive, to not judge. It was all about love. It's like, here is the example of what God really looks like and is. And he said, the things you can do, I've done, you can do greater than these. What? I mean, think about that. So we go to church, and somehow the preachers of the past got us all boxed in, that no one ever really focused on that. The things I've done, you can do greater than these. What does that mean, right?
You just showed us the 4-minute mile, and everybody's still walking. What's going on?
Exactly.
And I was a student ambassador in grad school and went to India, and I was at Mahatma Gandhi's house, who's obvious, right? But what he said is, there's enough for everybody's need, but not enough for anyone's greed. Look, we got a fundamentally rich resource planet, right? And now we got technology that can make more than enough for 8 billion people, but we get some political deferring self-initiative that says, well, I think I should hoard it all and take it. No. There's enough for all of us. We all got enough breath, just like what Lucas was just saying. We can breathe endlessly, and would we like cleaner air with EVs and all that? The answer is yeah. Can we do all that? The answer is yeah. And we've got the technology that for the first time in history that would befuddle our ancestors, and they go, really, you can fly? Are you kidding? It's wonderful.
That's so good. That's so good.
So there's so much stuff here that I wanted to talk about. One of the things is like, because I had a hard time in the beginning of 2020, because the same reason I think all of us did, because we love everyone. We don't want to see anyone suffer. And we happen to know that it's unnecessary. And I was blessed with trauma a few years before. So I was forced to study medicine and science, quantum physics, epigenetics, and all that kind of stuff that we're not taught. So when this came around, I was able to kind of see through a lot of things. And I thought, guys, it's okay. We, this, that, and the other, but we've just gotten so bogged down by years and years and years and decades of conditioning, right? By certain things. So where do we go from here? Like, what is the best question to ask? Like, how do we dip our toe in the water, right? Because for me, in the beginning, I was taking everybody to the goal line, and backing it up. So it was a little unsuccessful because people weren't quite ready. And breaking through that program, I know it's been, 15 years for me, asking questions, dabbling a little bit in spirituality and asking in positivity. So what do you guys find success in what's going on right now, helping others kind of start asking, like, what's the gateway question?
Well, and it depends on specifically what you're trying to get to, Aaron, but I think the important thing to remember is the beautiful thing about about asking questions is when you're trying to teach someone something or trying to share something, instead of just, and this can apply to sales. We have a section, in the book, we break it down in asking in health and wellness, asking in your career and money house, asking in your relationships. But we talk about, think of a salesperson. So when you're trying to persuade someone of something that is the truth, right? That's sort of like what you do in sales a little bit. It's kind of the same rules apply. So often when we want to share a product, a service, or an idea with somebody, we come in and we start just telling them how much we know, how great this information is, how they have to believe it because it is so great. And we're just telling, right?
Product dumping.
Right. And so the beauty of asking questions and what we teach in the book is whenever you're trying to persuade someone of something, start by asking them where they are with something. For example, in the case of a business scenario, instead of going, we've got the greatest product and service, how about sitting down and saying, what are your biggest pain points? What are the struggles you're having right now? What concerns you? And so as you ask these questions, you start to first of all, bond with this person with whom you're trying to have some influence and affect a result, right? So that creates a bond because all of a sudden you start to get to know them. You really know what they're thinking. You start to understand where they're at right now. And that's the starting point to everything. You can't persuade someone to something for anything unless you really understand them a little bit better, understand their needs, understand what their understandings are, and then start to get them to consider something new by asking them a question. Do you think it's possible that this could be a solution? Do you think it's possible that this is something that you should look at? Would this be perhaps a solution that could make things better? So it's that power of questions. It's such a beautiful way for human beings to relate and to reveal. The truth always comes out through questions, right?
Right. Yeah.
The other thing to hitchhike on what you said is that if you got to drag somebody across the starting line, you got to drag them across the finish line. And a lot of people aren't ready to make the trip. And that's why the big guy said, don't cast your pearls before swine, meaning not besmirching people, but some people just aren't ready to make the trip or understand that there's some ways out of the COVID confinement position. But my position, I'll just do it personally, is that you can't look at a caterpillar and predict butterfly. And so right now we've had 8 billion of us, that's the world population right now, in COVID confinement, right? And the only way out of that is by asking questions. And if you don't like Christ doing it or Moses, you can go back and say, hey, look, Socrates did it in ancient Greece because he taught Aristotle, he taught Archimedes, he taught Alexander the Great to go and conquer the world that he thought was the world.
Right.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Sorry, but if you're dragging someone else, now you're holding yourself back too.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, that's perfect.
That's a really great perspective.
And I know a lot of people listening, a lot of people in our groups and our groups that we're in, privately, everybody's trying to figure out how to help their friends and family. And it's like, you can lead a horse to water. You can't drink it for them. But I try to tell everyone at this point, you have to remember the world needs all of you. And if you're trying to drag, like that's a great metaphor. If you're trying to drag somebody across the starting line and the finish line, now the world doesn't get you because now you're slow and you're holding yourself up. So thank you for that. It's a good point.
Right. And, that don't cast your pearls before swine. It's not that calling people pigs. It's just like what Christ was trying to say, I think, is like, you have these beautiful pearls of wisdom. You don't want them to get trampled on because it crushes. When you're sharing your pearls, it kind of crushes your spirit when you keep getting your pearls trampled on. And so it's important to, go slowly. And one way to do that is by asking those questions, like something like, if you knew there was another perspective by top professionals, there was a completely different perspective that ends up being in opposition to the one that's being presented that you're hearing all the time. Would that be something that you would be open to?
Yeah.
Because I found that it's something that really got my attention, and I'm always seeking truth and knowledge. Yes. Are you a seeker of truth and knowledge, or are you happy with what you're hearing? And so let them answer. Right. Are they going to say no? I don't want truth and knowledge. Okay.
And that's the thing. If no means no, because we want to honor that in everyone because we want that for us.
Yeah.
Like Lucas always says, no means no. So if they say no, we have to honor that and then hold space and honor their journey because we don't know their journey. And especially if we get into the soul levels and we may have been here. I may have been through this. I may have been through famine and all that kind of stuff back in the day in a past life. So now I'm at a different place, but maybe younger souls come in and have to have this experience.
Let me give a quickest story if I could. Back when I was running the Inner Circle, we had a multi-billionaire from Silicon Valley, Chinese kid, say, I want to buy back Tibet for the Dalai Lama. And he said, you said you can get this to anyone as the world's best-selling author. And I said, okay. I end up getting in a private meeting with like 100 people that are all the spiritual leaders, Billy Graham, everybody with this holiness is on the platform, right? And I finally, it opens up to questions. I say, this guy wants to buy back Tibet, and he's got a lot of money. I thought through everything the guy could say. You're crazy, it's idiotic, you're an idiot, get out of here. But it never dawned on me that he would laugh for 15 minutes. He laughed. And I thought, wow. And now I'm standing here sort of embarrassed. And he says, oh, I really hurt your feelings, Mark, and I don't want to do that. So the cameras didn't pick it up, but I can tell you, I got goosebumps again. Pink light just enveloped me, and the cameraman came up to me later and said, man, I wish my camera was good enough to take the pictures of what just hit, because that was amazing, because he said he didn't want to hurt your feelings. And no, he didn't. I just was trying to help, and I didn't realize the omnivorousness of China at the time, which all of us on this call do, and that they took over for land and a population grab and water grab, ice grab.
I am so thankful that we're on this call right now and talking and just.
We are too.
You're such beautiful souls. I just, this world that we are in right now, it is so fascinating. It is so, and just hearing like, I don't want to hang out with you guys all the time. I love this. I love talking about and looking at these different things and thinking about this. And there are so many hungering souls right now looking, begging, crying out, what? There has to be more than this media, mind control, fear-based slavery, being used constantly. And hear us talk, I'm like, the world, this is the awakening, that the soul, this is why Aaron and I started the awakened soul. It's like, Hebrew, our soul is the breath of God, neshama, and God breathed into man, and man became a living soul. And like anything that constricts our breath is not truth, because truth makes us free. Free to breathe, free to be, free to expand. And just here, I just want to say thank you. I'm looking at you, I'm listening, I'm like, man, this is cool that I'm actually part of this. You're there, I'm here. This is just, we're in such incredible times. And I just thank you both. I'm not trying to end the conversation. I just want to tell you, thank you.
No, it's wonderful. And I love that you're bringing that up, Lucas, because it's, I really think and I think we're all feeling it. especially here on this call. But I'm seeing everyone, so many people everywhere. There is this new movement of oneness that is happening, and it's transcending racial boundaries. It's transcending political boundaries. And I think that's happening in a bigger and bigger way. And I think there are parts of, there are special interests that don't like the oneness, because when you divide people, you control people.
Yeah.
So it's divide and conquer, right? Divide and conquer. When we become one and we recognize the divine oneness in all of us, because we are one, we came from that one source of, pure wisdom, love, and creation and intelligence. We are the offspring of that source. Very literally, we are that. We are these offspring spirits living in these bodies. And we're starting to recognize that more and more, and loving this oneness and celebrating. And you could see it in so many ways. But then those people who profit, who are more profit and greed centric, corporate interests, media interests, who know that they can have more control, more power, political power, by dividing and separating and boxing people into separate arenas. And then lying to them about the nature of the reality, of the nature of who they are, and pretending, trying to brainwash people into thinking that there's, we should all be different and we should all hate each other. And it's all so false, because people have this natural love for one another. The beautiful thing about the divine is it's unquenchable. We see it in each other. We love each other because we recognize the oneness. And I think the more that we share this message, the oneness gets stronger and stronger. And ultimately, we're not going to find the greatest solutions in governments and political parties. We're going to find our greatest solutions amongst one another. And it's just so beautiful. It's so exciting.
Yeah. I have to tell you guys a funny story. Aaron knows this. So in 2019, before 2 weeks before I gave my TED Talk, I was the MC and keynote speaker on a global cruise with the elite of the planet. And I don't, in hindsight, still don't know how and why I was there, but I asked God, what do you want me to tell these people? Like, who am I? What do you want me to tell? And I heard clear as day, like a lightning bolt shoot through my soul. It said, talk about the beauty of humanity. Talk about the beauty of humanity. And I'm like, the beauty of humanity? It was reverberating in me. Talk about the beauty of humanity. Talk about the beauty of humanity. Wow. So I wish I could tell who, but there was all these events that happened, and it was in China and Japan, and I'm there and I get on stage and I am like planted firmly. And I give this talk about the beauty of humanity, and it was so powerful. It was like light was just like shooting off. And I got fired the next day and sent home from Osaka, Japan, because they said that it was not about the beauty of humanity. And I was like, it was traumatic. It was wild. I was like, what is happening? But in hindsight now, it is so funny. They didn't want humanity, but humanity.
Did they want you to talk about money, or what did they want you to talk about?
Talk about business stuff and blah blah blah. I mean, stuff, anything other than the beauty of humanity. But I laugh now, because now knowing where we are and what, you can't suppress the beauty of humanity. God gave me that message to send it to that place at that time, and detonate light in front of their very eyes. So I don't know.
Detonate light.
Oh man, this is fun.
Yeah, so many friends that are getting frustrated right now because again, a lot of people get their information from social media. Even us, we're just seeing the world around us through a screen. I like to see the world around me through my environment. I go to the park with Tyler all the time. I live a very, very normal life. So it's calming to know, like, okay, not everything we see there is true. However, I try to remind people, even though you might not think it, people are waking up every day. We are getting closer. That oneness is growing every day, but they're not going to report on that on CNN. It's just not going to happen. So you have to know in your heart, you have to feel it. And I feel it. And we're noticing, I mean, the fact that the three of us are in this room together, 2019, none of us knew each other at all.
Right.
So what's going on is actually bringing us together more and more. And Lucas and I, like the people that are coming on are people that I didn't even know in Hollywood. Like, I'm not bringing actors on this show. Like, there are no Hollywood people that would dare to come here. It's career suicide.
Right, it is.
But the people that are coming over and having these conversations with us are the most beautiful souls. Like, clearing space opens up space for some new high vibrational energy to come in. And I would much rather have this conversation for one person than to be on the other side and continue manipulating millions by being part of something. You know?
That's the whole principle, is that one in alignment with God or in attunement with the infinite or whatever. And by the way, there are 367 names for God. So I'm not, I respectfully understand those of the Jewish religion. You're not supposed to use the name above all names. I got it, right? We got a lot of rabbi friends. The point is that attunement is happening. And I can tell you, I got goosebumps again. For us, we just got booked in a thing in Tulsa, and they sold out 4,000 seats, almost like that. Not because of us, because of some of the other players that are on it. And then we just got booked yesterday to Life University, and it just is amazing that the world's opening up and what they want to hear about the spirit. And let me just go way backwards. I've been to China 80 times back when it was oriented toward capitalism. I wrote a book series called 1 Minute Millionaire that I wanted to have everyone. I wanted to create 1 million millionaires because there's one right, easy, perfect, acceptable way for everyone to make $1 million. But Crystal started going to the talks with me, and I was supposed to talk 3 days in a row to 12,000 people about money. And the second day I start, how many of you want to hear about money? And no one stands up, no one raises their hand. I go, jeez, I got all these PowerPoints in China, right? We're in Shanghai, the business capital of China, like New York City. And so I said, how many of you want to hear Crystal? Because I had her talk the first day. They all stood up. And they never asked about business, sort of like what Lucas said. They only wanted to talk about spirit. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I've signed a list that says 28 things I want to talk about God. If I want to talk about God, I talk about Solomon, the richest guy in the world with $4 trillion. Yeah, the guys, the censors in the back have no idea who Solomon was or who King David was. Right? And it was amazing. And luckily I know the Bible back and forwards and backwards. I did chicken soup with the whole Bible, but they wanted to only hear about spirit, and they only wanted to ask Crystal, which is okay with me because our promoter loved Crystal, luckily.
Well, they just were craving, they've been taught, it's atheism and communism, and everybody's originally put in the blue and grays and taken their identity. They had no identity. And so as they started to emerge, that natural human spirit that we're talking about, it craves God. It craves oneness. It craves that spiritual practice. I actually led him through a meditation, and he wanted to do that every day.
It feels good.
So sweet. And then one time we were there, then we just started getting booked a lot. We used to go to China a lot until the last couple of years because it's just not safe anymore right now. The relationship's just not good with our two countries. But one of the times that we were there, I was there on my birthday, and they surprised me. It was so sweet. They brought out these 2 bunches of 99 roses. On your birthday, they give you 99 roses. This is like a huge bouquet. It's huge. And they brought one that was red and one that was pink. And they totally surprised me. They sang happy birthday. My agent had it all arranged, and brought out a cake. And then they brought out this original silk painting that they'd done, and they'd circulated it through the audience, so it had like 1,000 signatures on it. And a couple of times, in places they wrote, "Jesus loves you." And I thought that I was so touched by that, because they're not supposed to outwardly be worshiping things, but they're holding on to those beliefs and that knowledge, that innate knowledge that there's something beyond just this human experience that is so much more beautiful and more divine. And I don't know, we love the Chinese people. And
yeah, so beautiful. That is such a beautiful story.
Yeah. It's so cool.
The story they like to hear most at the end, I don't know if it's appropriate now, but when Crystal and I are falling in love, she'd come to one of my seminars where it's a VIP room, so he spills red wine on her, and I run over through the crowd. And I said, I think I know where the club soda is. And I asked her if I can take her out to dinner, and we go to the best restaurant in Hollywood, and there's 50 people at 9:30 or 10 at night, and I go, man, $100 bill won't get me in. So we go up and the guy sees that protrudeness just emanates out of the pore of every pore of my wife's beauty and wisdom. And he says, okay, I give up. Who is she? Now, remember, I ask questions. The book is asked, right? I live in the question because I know the answer will come. He says, who is she? I said, you don't recognize her? And the guy's mind, it's on steroids going. And the guy says, okay, I give up. Who is she? Now, we're of Danish descent, so I was goofing totally. And I said, she's the Queen of Denmark. He starts by saying, no, she is not. He says, oh my gosh, she is. Who are you? Back to questions. I said, who travels with the queen? He said, oh, you're the king. Hold on. He starts shaking and we're goofing. But in China, that's the story they want because they call us the king and queen of Denmark, which we're absolutely not. And it was a tease, but it works so well in this story. You know, my hero, Mark Twain, says, never let the truth get in the way of a little embellishment to make a story better.
And they came to their own conclusions from the questions you asked. So theoretically, you didn't do anything wrong.
Well, we were actually laughing, and I'm like, oh, surely they don't think we're. And then suddenly, they're like, we've got a special table for you at the back. And we're like, oh my gosh, I think really? And then we're like, okay, I guess it's too late. We'll just roll with it.
Isn't
like,
that interesting?
The chef came out in the houndstooth and they're like, is everything okay? You know, we're just like, oh, okay, we'll just go with it. This is a lot of fun.
I love the thinking of you two because you guys can see the instant truth of it, like what you just said. Just amazing. You guys are great. You're master askers because you're asking yourself to go inward to the divinity within, which is what Crystal and I have been talking about with you guys, thankfully, for the last half hour or so. Because I think everyone's got it. And what happens is I think the four of us are holding up the mirror and saying, hey, look inside. Yeah. You've got greatness in you. You got God or spirit or life or universal intelligence or infinite wisdom, whatever it is you want to, you can name it anything you want. I'm not pushing a name here, source, right? But when you do, you evolve. And one of my daughters is an evolutionary biologist, and you know, because every kid walks at 9 months, every little boy and every little girl at 12 months, basically. And I think we're ready to evolve again. And that's why, if you do it from a spiritual point of view, the COVID confinement has pushed us into going deep within so we can come without and do something miraculous.
Yes. Yeah, what's funny, this just came to me. I've been vibrating this entire time. It's just amazing. We can talk for 8 hours. I promise we won't. Tyler won't let it happen anyway. But I just, based on what you said, there's a spark. There's a spark inside of us, and the questions are the fuel to ignite that fire. Right. Like when I started asking questions, I feel like it came alive again. And this conversation that we're having is something that I've wanted to do since I was 10 years old, but I couldn't find friends that, you know, at that level, at that age, that would want to talk. So we do stuff that 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds do, right? And then you get into 12, 13, you start just chasing girls and you know, it's all that kind of stuff. But I was always wanted to have these profound conversations. And, you know, a few years ago, I told my wife, like, the whole red carpet thing and the Hollywood thing, it's, you know, it's just not what it seems. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I can't have no more small talk. Like I will not talk about the weather ever again, unless you want to talk about how the government is controlling it. But I'm not talking, like, I'm done with the small talk. I want to have deep, profound conversations. And just this hour is like one of the best experiences I've had, you know, and we're having them more and more because, and again, I know there's a divide and it is successfully happening in a way, and everybody will come back at our own time and we'll all meet on the other side as one. But in the meantime, wow, I don't even have an opportunity for small talk anymore. It's so beautiful because I've asked enough questions and I've planted my flag in the ground so people know, like, don't even bother. You're not going to get them to bend at this point, you know? So now the people that come into my life, we're having these questions, and it's such a beautiful thing. It's so refreshing. Thank you guys so much again. I mean, we could literally do this all day. And I hope after we stop recording, you guys just have a couple minutes offline to chat.
Yeah, we definitely will. And I just want to say before we part ways, you guys, just to the audience, remember, and, you know, let this speak to you personally. Like, there's no mechanism that has the ability to reveal what is hidden from you, like asking. So take the time to ask the questions. If you're stuck, if you're feeling, you know, despondent, if things haven't worked out for you, if you feel a sense of loss, all of these things, there's one way out. There's this great tool, and it's a tool you were born with. But most of the time it's crushed out of us. We forget how to use that tool. So let it come alive again. Let the book be your guide. And also, we're having a, after you buy the book on Amazon, go to askthebookclub.com, and we're going to facilitate this amazing sort of book club free webinar where we're going to take a deeper dive and really help people launch their asking journey. So we're super excited about that. So make sure you go to askthebookclub.com and get your free golden ticket to the webinar.
I love that. I think that's so important too, to create a community and book club to discuss the book instead of just reading it alone. It's so much more effective and valuable if you experience it with others. So thank you for putting that together, and I'll definitely be joining.
Awesome. We can't wait.
Now we got one person.
I'm pre-ordering my golden ticket.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. Blessings.
Thank you both.
Thanks, Lucas.
You guys are both a treasure. Thank you.
Oh,